The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
What's up, guys? Another week, another edition of UFC Best Bets with my partner, Ian Parker, over there in Florida. I am Brett Okamoto in Las Vegas. We enjoyed our time in Houston, Texas, enjoyed UFC 271, and now we are back for a UFC Fight Night at the Apex in Las Vegas. A main event, well, it wasn't the original main event, but it's the main event we have now. Light heavyweight, Jamahal Hill versus Johnny Walker. A little bit out for our old main event, Rafael Fiziev versus Rafael dos Anjos. I was really looking forward to that fight. Fortunately, we get to see it in a couple weeks, again, here in Las Vegas at UFC 272. But Ian, how you feeling, man? How was Houston for you? Did it treat you right? And how are we feeling about this card this weekend?
Yeah, Houston was great. I was happy to be back on set live with you. We hit some nice plays out there. Bobby Green, Israel Adesanya by decision, and we kept that trend. Our last three main events we hit, so I'm looking to keep that going forward. I'm looking for us to make some money on this one. And I know you've been looking for that clean sweep. I'm aiming to do it for this one.
All right, well, let's get right down to action here. We're looking at the main card of UFC Fight Night this weekend. Again, headlined by Johnny Walker taking on Jamahal Hill. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Starts at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. It's a 5-fight main card. In addition to that light heavyweight main event, you got a catchweight fight between Daukaus and Jamie Pickett. That is because Pickett is coming in on short notice and a very quick turnaround. He just fought last month. Heavyweight bout on there, Parker Porter versus Alan Boudreaux. Jim Miller competing in his 50th professional fight. That is a feat all in itself. And then Joaquin Buckley taking on Abdul Razak Hassan. That fight might not get out of the first minute, but we will talk about that a little bit later. Let's talk about the main event first, Ian. Johnny Walker taking on Jamahal Hill. Again, this was not the original main event. It is now. Jamahal Hill has shown a lot of promise, and that is reflected in the line, minus 240, against a guy in Johnny Walker who's been up and down, inconsistent, but we know how dangerous he is. How are you trying to break down this fight?
Well, look, let's start off with Johnny Walker. This is somebody that after, I guess, needing to be controls, need to go somewhere where someone could have that chaos be a little bit more poised. And he went with John Kavanagh at SBG, and we saw that last fight against Thiago Santos. He was poised, but it was almost a little bit too much. So I don't know if Johnny Walker has found that happy medium yet where he's got that aggression power, but he also knows how to really control it. We've seen that fight against Ryan Spann and many others where he's taken the shot and then he was able to come back and land a wild one to finish the fight. You know, in that one against Ryan, I think it was even, he was essentially out twice. They didn't stop it. He came back and won. We've seen that happen too many times with Johnny Walker, too much flash. And then again in his last fight, he sat back and he watched as Thiago Santos kind of pointed at him for the win, which is something we don't expect when we think of a Johnny Walker fight. In this one here, I think Jamahal Hill, the odds really, truly represent correctly. For me, and again, we can go back to Johnny Walker as we see it on the screen here. Plus 130, he lost, and then as a favorite, up and down, you said it best. However, for me, this stylistically is not a good matchup for him. I think for Jamahal Hill, people were really kind of thinking he was exposed after he lost to Paul Craig, saying, oh, this is only someone who could strike. He's a knockout artist. Look what happens when you put him in a position on the ground. You know what? He bounced back against someone in Jimmy Crute. That is no small task to take on after a loss, and he did what he did best, and he sent Brute Crute to sleep, right? For me, Johnny Walker, I don't know if he's going to be as patient. He has to find a way to use that power, get that explosive energy controlled. But against Jamahal Hill, I just think he's too good of a striker. I think he's going to find that very weak chin of Johnny Walker, and I think he gets it done inside the distance and or wins by TKO or KO.
Oh, wow. Okay, inside the distance. I agree with you on the Jamahal Hill sort of. Anybody who's thinking this guy was exposed, Paul Craig is just, he's kind of that anomaly, man. He's not going to be, he's not ranked in like the top 5. So when you see a guy slip on a banana peel against Paul Craig, you do, I think, you tend to think like, oh man, he lost to Paul Craig. Like how good can Paul Craig, his guard is just that kind of X factor, man. Guys have fallen into that. Magomed Ankalaev, who is a guy I'm extremely high on. I think everybody is. I think he's going to fight for a title someday. He lost to Paul Craig in the very last second of his UFC debut. So by a triangle choke off the ground. So I do give Jamahal Hill a little bit of a pass when it comes to that. So what made you decide to go with the finish, though? Because like you said, I'm just having a hard time trying to decide what we're going to see out of Johnny Walker, man. And so it just gives me pause betting this main event entirely, because you got a wild guy who was almost too wild, and then who was like too composed in his next one. What makes you think that he's not going to be that way again, I guess, because that's the most recent thing that we saw out of him?
Sure. Look, for Johnny Walker, I just think he's confused with who he is as a fighter. You know, he got to the UFC and he got those few wins in the beginning because of his aggression, his wild style, almost like Michel Pereira, except we've seen Pereira be able to control it while maintaining a level of aggression output, and that's why he's climbing the ranks, and Johnny Walker just hasn't figured it out yet. But I'm not relying on him figuring it out. I am relying here on the IQ of Jamahal Hill. I don't think Walker's a threat putting him on his back. He definitely doesn't have the jiu-jitsu skills of Paul Craig. So I think that we're going to see Jamahal Hill do what he does best. He's going to walk his opponent down. He's going to literally cut the angles off, and he's going to jab and jab until he's able to land that cross. And Walker does not have a good chin. I don't see him being in a situation where he's able to come back up after he gets knocked down. Hill does not make too many mistakes. Outside of Paul Craig, he doesn't swing for the fences. He lets it flow. So I think at some point that he's going to touch that chin and Walker's going to go out. I don't see this going 5 rounds.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you're high on Jamahal Hill, and a lot of people are. If you want more on this fight, check out ESPN.com tomorrow. I have a piece coming out with a bunch of different analysts talking about plenty of different contenders in different weight classes. Jamahal Hill is one of them. A lot of good feedback on Jamahal Hill. Okay, let's go to this co-main event. Jamie Pickett, again, as I mentioned right off the bat, a quick turnaround. He fought last month. Picked up a win, which was big for him because he started off his UFC career, 0-2, has since bounced back 2-0. Kyle Daukaus was supposed to be fighting Julian Marquez. That's not happening anymore after Marquez withdrew, and now we get Jamie Pickett. Kyle Daukaus coming in as a pretty significant favorite, which should surprise nobody, minus 270. Pickett coming back at plus 220. What are you thinking about this co-main event, Ian?
Look, credit to Pickett for wanting to maintain that level of activity. He's excited. He got his first win over a very inexperienced Joseph Holmes, and we saw that inexperience is the reason why he lost. You know, Pickett was not overly dominant. He did clearly win that fight. I know that sounds a little weird, but if you go and watch that back, Holmes had some moments, and then he either got tired or he got nervous, and Pickett was able to one punch here, one punch there, compared to the zero activity of Holmes. We're looking at a guy in Daukaus who was probably as confident as ever walking into this fight after his performance against Kevin Holland. Now, I know that ended in a no contest due to the incidental headbutt, but outside of that, he was winning that fight. He looked fantastic. We have seen him fight very high level of competition, guys like Brendan Allen, since he stepped foot in the cage. I think this is going to be Daukaus' time to shine. Pickett's a very hard guy to put away, and at minus 270, we'll throw Daukaus in our parlay later. I'm very confident that he wins. But I think Pickett's someone who's hard to put away, and for Daukaus, I'm expecting him to want to get this fight to the ground, get top guard and work his jiu-jitsu. Pickett's defensive wrestling is very solid. So for me, Kyle Daukaus, instead of minus 270, we're going to get plus 138 on him to win by decision.
Yeah, I like that pick too. I think this is an opportunity for Kyle Daukaus to shine, and I do agree that his confidence is high. Let's go to this heavyweight fight, kind of following an early trend here on this main card. Another sort of wide betting line. Parker Porter coming in at minus 260. Parker Porter, minus 260 against Alan Boudreaux, who I get it, man. Alan Boudreaux came in 8-0 to the UFC. He scuffled a little bit. I'm sorry, 8-1. He scuffled a little bit. Now he's 8-2. He would be 0-2 in the UFC had his last loss not been overturned to a no contest. How are you breaking down this fight? And Parker Porter, minus 260. Are we interested in that, or is that just too high for Parker Porter?
You know what? I think Parker Porter is pretty good. His last fight against Chase Sherman, we saw a little bit of everything for him. What really impressed me was his cardio, his angles, and he doesn't force the knockout. Boudreaux, if that wasn't overturned, he'd be 0-2, like you said, with the knockouts. For me, I think this is the first time we're going to see Parker Porter get a win inside the distance. I think he does finish Boudreaux here. He's just faster. Funny you say that based on the physique, right? But Parker Porter is a pretty solid fighter. I like his striking. He's very precise. I think he gets it done here.
Yeah, he does have surprising speed. He almost reminds me of the Sean Jordan type. Or you don't think that guy's going to be very quick, but he does have
that's a good comparison. I like that.
Hand speed. By the way, And I like the inside the distance. His last 2 fights have gone the distance, but he was an underdog in both of those, cashed as both of those. So let's go to my man, everybody's man. Everybody loves this guy, Jim Miller, again, taking on his 50th professional fight. He is doing so as a plus 150 underdog against Nicholas Mata. Jim Miller, I mean, what can you say about this guy? Most fights in UFC history, 38. Tied for second most wins in UFC history with 22. Third most wins by submission. Third most finishes in UFC history. Man, and you know what? When you look back in recent years, this guy has, it seems like, and you would think this, right? That the odds makers have sort of figured out Jim Miller. I mean, when you have that body of work, you got a lot to go on. He tends to win as a favorite, lose as an underdog. The big exception, of course, a couple years ago was when he beat Roosevelt Roberts as a pretty significant dog. What do you think here, man? He's plus 150. Does that trend continue? Has Vegas figured this guy out, or does he have a chance to get an upset win here?
I don't know if anyone's able to figure out Jim Miller at this point. I don't know if Jim Miller is able to figure out other than him wanting to continue to fight. And look, he is still winning, and he's winning at a really interesting level. He is continuing to fight prospects that the UFC is trying to pretty much say, hey, look, if you get past Jim Miller, you deserve to be here. If you don't, you need to maybe take a look and go refine your skills a little bit. I think his opponent in Mota is a very solid prospect. However, he's had a lot of time off. And from what we saw, very solid striking skills, right? Jim Miller is someone his last fight somehow found the fountain of youth, got a finish there with a knockout. We haven't seen that in a while out of him, normally known for his ground game. In this fight, I am not picking either side to win because, again, the trend is throwing me off. I think Jim Miller has an ability to win here if we get the fight to the ground, but Mota's power and strength and his striking in this weight class is pretty devastating, and Miller sometimes gets caught. For me, this fight does not go the distance. I think it's either going to be a sub from Miller or a knockout from Mota. So we're going to play it that way.
All right. We're going to see a finish one way or another in the Jim Miller versus Nicholas Mata fight. Man, I like it when the UFC main cards start off with a bang, right? And so last week, you had Bobby Green walking out, high energy. Love seeing that fight to kick off the main card. Here, this week, you got Joaquin Buckley taking on Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Al Hassan has 11 wins in his career. All of those 11 wins have come via knockout in the first round. Buckley, everybody remembers the highlight. You know what you're getting with this guy. Expect the unexpected. He is a minus 160 to kick off the main card against Al Hassan, which is plus 135. How do you try to pick apart this fight, man, with a lot of unpredictable striking from both of these guys?
You know, Buckley showed us a lot in his last fight that he stayed kind of patient. He got that finish in the third round. However, what we finally saw out of Al Hassan in that last fight was those crazy kicks. And when I mean crazy, I just mean the power. That was a very technical kick that he landed on Kiriko. For me, I am more than willing to take the dog money here on Al Hassan. I think Buckley just leaves himself open too many times to get hit. I don't think he's fought too many guys that carry the power. And I think Al Hassan, look, the 2 losses when he came back, he was out for a really long time. He went through a lot of personal stuff. Sometimes that's really hard to come back with all the drama and then being out of the gym. I think he's back. I think that last knockout against a guy in Kiriko kind of spoke volumes here. It's going to be essentially the volume of Buckley wearing Al Hassan down with his cardio or Al Hassan landing that monster kick. We've seen Buckley get finished quite a few times. I like Al Hassan here at plus 135. It's really hard to pass up that opportunity when you know this is going to be a striking battle with a guy who carries insane power like him.
Interesting, man. Yeah, I mean, if you go back to when Al Hassan was sort of doing his thing before he ran into some of those issues, you wouldn't have gotten this line. You would not have gotten him in plus 135 against Joaquin Buckley. So if you believe he's back, then I do believe you will be correct that there will be value on that line. Okay, you teased a parlay earlier. Again, a lot of kind of wide lines on this main card. So how are we going to group these things together to make some money on a parlay?
Well, look, there's a lot of big favorites on this card that I really feel are not going to have too much trouble. So I want to get some value out of this. So we're going to start with Pierce at minus 360. I think that's a heavy mismatch. He should get that done. Same thing with Anheigler. At minus 270, I need value there. I don't want to bet that straight. It's too much of a risk. But we parlay them. We minimize the risk. We get a little bit of a payout here. Again, Daukaus, for me, should beat Pickett everywhere on the feet and on the ground. And Jamahal Hill in the main event. So he'll be our last leg. And for that, we're going to get plus 240 odds right there. For me, that's enough. I like that with the 4 heavier favorites. Let's rock with that parlay, Brett.
Let's rock with a parlay. Plus 240. Last week, we almost hit it, man. We almost hit it at over plus 300 odds. missed it by 1. Unfortunate result. That'll happen sometimes in the parlay. I like this one. Got good energy around it. 4. We're going to hit all 4, and we're going to hit that plus money. Okay, let's take a look at the prelims. It's almost got a little bit of a WEC vibe to it, Ian. No fights on this that are over the weight of 145 pounds. You see those early prelims there with the aforementioned Chad and Helliger at -270, Jonathan Pierce at -360. That's pretty wide odds. Gabriel Benitez versus David Onama is sort of the main event of the prelims. I like that fight. Jessica Rose Clarke staying active. She's only fought once in 2019, 2020, 2021, but hopefully a very active year for her in 2022. So some interesting fights here to talk about, Ian. What would you like to highlight on this preliminary card?
Yeah, well, you said it best. You know, Jessica Rose Clarke is someone who went from being inactive due to injury. She'd get a good win, hurt her knee, be out, get a good win. Now she's looking to really get the wheels turning. She's feeling confident in herself. And I like that she's not letting ego and the level of excitement in her fights get in the way. She needs to win on the record. She needs the cage time. And look, Stephanie Egger is someone that is going to come to fight. She's tough. But Jessica Rose Clarke, I think, is a very methodical fighter, high IQ. She comes from a really good camp. And what we've seen in her last 2 fights is she's willing to push away the side of, oh, I want to get that violent TKO. And she's leaning on her wrestling, which in this fight is where she will have the advantage. Position over submission in this fight. She'll probably land some really solid ground and pound. The odds are a little bit higher than I like here because you just never know at this part of the division. But Jessie Jess should get it done. Again, I think based on her last fight to what we see now, the striking to really lean into the wrestling, she'll get it done.
Okay, let's also kind of highlight this, as I said, the sort of main event on the prelims is the final fight before we go into the main card. It's a featherweight fight between Gabriel Benitez and David Onama. Interesting fight to me, man. I mean, Benitez is only 1-3 in his last 4 fights, but you look at some of the competition that came against. It's all guys that I like: Sadiq Yusuf, Omar Morales, Billy Q. I like all those guys, man. Those are tough fights. And David Onama, coming off of his UFC debut, he drew a tough assignment as well against Mason Jones, a guy that I'm high on, a guy that I think a lot of the industry is high on. And the odds, I think, reflect that, man. It's a very, very closely contested fight. David Onama, -150, even though he's still searching for that first UFC win. What do you think of that featherweight fight?
Well, look, let's start off on the side of Benitez here. I don't know if he should be such an underdog just because of the level of competition. Both guys are coming off a loss. This is only Onama's second fight. But Benitez has kind of shown where his weakness is. When he gets pressured with striking, when he gets put on his back, he has a hard time standing back up. If he doesn't land those leg kicks earlier, if he doesn't kind of lead the dance with the wrestling, he struggles. And we've seen that happen. Onama, what I was impressed about the most in his last fight, number one, he fought up a weight class on short notice, was the biggest underdog on the card to, like you said, one of the blue chip prospects in Mason Jones. And he may have even won a round here or there. It was a lot closer than what people thought it was going to be. And he took Jones to the distance. For me, I do like Onama here. However, because it's only his second fight and because of Benitez's experience, I think we're going to play it a little bit safer and go over 1.5 rounds. Onama does carry power, but when Benitez has been finished, it's been later in the second, earlier in the third. And Onama, I don't think he gets finished by Benitez. So over 1.5 rounds, I really like that play a lot.
Okay, listening to you describe it, it makes sense to me. Over on the Benitez-Onama fight, then we're taking Jessica Rose Clarke. Why don't you go ahead and take us through the other 5, Ian? When you look at these prelims, we talked about them in just a little bit. We've highlighted some of them. Give us your picks for the rest of the prelims.
Sure, for the Batista and Jay Perrin, I think that fight goes to a decision. Look, Batista's a really solid fighter here. The odds show it. But I think Perrin's ground game is being undervalued here. I think he's someone who can keep the fight at bay. I don't think he wins, but I definitely think it goes the distance. Jonathan Pierce and Rodriguez, I really like Pierce as a prospect here. I think he gets it done inside the distance. And then, for Chad versus Strader, under 2.5 rounds for me, I think Ann Heigler gets it done relatively quickly in that one. And then look, going on to the prelims, over 1.5, Onama Benitez, Jessica Rose Clarke over Egger. I think Chad Skelly, even if this is his last ride into the sunset, this is someone who always comes to fight. I know he says if they want to do it striking, he will. We all know what's going to happen. He's going to use that wrestling, take that back. I projected he's going to get it done by submission. And then Belbita over DePaula. We saw her in her last fight come forward, volume, pressure. DePaula does not handle that well. I think Diana Belbita gets another win on her record. And that's what I like in the prelims, man. I think this is a kind of a fight card that's flying under the radar a little bit.
All right. I mean, and it's flying under the radar as far as a gambling perspective as well. I mean, the main card is a little bit a favorite heavy, but a lot of close fights to bet on during the prelims. Again, 12-fight card. You can watch it on ESPN Plus Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern. One more time, I gotta mention we lost the Rafael dos Anjos Rafael Fiziev fight. Ian, I love that fight so much, but we get to see it on March 5th. At UFC 272. So, and it's a co-main event, and it stayed 5 rounds. So, thank goodness for that. All right, you've given out a lot of picks on the show, Ian. I think we're ready. You want to do your best bets? What do you got for your best bets this weekend?
For the best bets, we are going to start off with my man Jamahal Hill. I think he gets it done inside the distance. We're going to lean on Daukaus here. I think he gets it done. I just think Pickett is too hard to put away. So we're going to go Daukaus by decision at plus odds. Jessica Rose Clarke, I think she's going to give Egger that veteran seasoning treatment here. I believe she gets it done with her wrestling. And last but not least, this fight, if it wasn't for Hassan and Buckley, I think this fight could be a fight of the night here. Benitez Onama over 1.5 rounds at minus 162. And then the Parker's Parlay, Hill, Daukaus, and Hagler and Pierce at plus 240. Brett, let's put a bow on this and let's get that sweep that you've been asking me for the last couple of weeks.
Let's have it, dude. Let's have it. Our first sweep of 2022. This feels like a great card to do it. So let's win some money on Saturday. We'll come back next week to talk about another main event that got altered a little bit. Bobby Green now taking on Islam Makhachev. Super excited to hear your thoughts on that matchup, the odds on that matchup. And then we've got Colby Covington taking on Jorge Masvidal the following week. All in Las Vegas, all on ESPN Plus. You can catch it all here, and you can catch UFC best bets every week. Here as well for all of your gambling advice. For Ian Parker and myself, thank you for watching. Enjoy the fights. We will see you next week.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.